the vast golden plains of the Serengeti, at the Dreams Wildlife Sanctuary in Tanzania, nature witnessed one of its most extraordinary miracles. A female leopard, Zara, raised 2 lion cubs as her own. But what happened when these cubs grew into powerful adult lions defied everything we thought we knew about natural instincts and the laws of the wild. This incredible story challenges our understanding of animal behavior and the power of bonds formed in the most unexpected circumstances. Before we begin this fascinating journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our extraordinary wildlife stories. The morning sun had barely risen over the acacia trees surrounding the sanctuary when Sarah Wilson's satellite phone rang. Sarah, who had dedicated her life to wildlife conservation in Tanzania, had established the 5,000-acre sanctuary, a place for rehabilitation and protected habitat. The lines on her weathered face spoke of many rescues, heartbreaks, and occasional miracles. Her phone rarely rang at such an early hour unless something was truly urgent. "Sarah, it's Mwamba at the northern checkpoint," came the urgent voice. "We caught poachers trying to transport lion cubs across the border. Their mother didn't make it." Sarah's heart sank as she gripped the phone. Another victim of the illegal wildlife trade that still plagued the region despite their best efforts. "How many cubs?" she asked, already calculating the space and resources required. "2 twins, a male and a female. They're no more than 3 weeks old. They refuse to feed. The vet says they're fading fast." 40 minutes later, Sarah stood in the sanctuary's clinic, looking down at the tiny cubs, each small enough to fit in the palm of her hand. Their eyes were barely open, their bodies trembling from fear and hunger. The female had a dark spot of fur around her right eye, while the male was slightly larger with dark-tipped ears. Their pitiful cries echoed through the still morning air. Sarah gently stroked the female cub with one finger. She shrank back, hissing weakly. 3 days passed with Sarah and her team trying everything they could think of. Bottle feeding was refused. Syringe feeding caused such stress that the male had seizures. The cubs curled together in their heated area, their eyes growing dimmer with each hour. On the 4th day, Sarah sat in her office, struggling to focus. The sanctuary was her life's work, but moments like this made her question everything. Her eyes wandered to the outdoor enclosure visible from her window. There, on a raised platform, lay Zara, a female leopard rescued from a poacher's snare. 2 years earlier, her rear left leg had never fully healed, making release into the wild impossible. Zara had adapted well to life in the sanctuary, though she maintained her wild instincts and kept her distance from humans. Recently, Zara's behavior had changed. Sarah had noticed her carrying a log around her enclosure and licking it protectively. The sanctuary's vet had confirmed that Zara was experiencing a false pregnancy, a common condition in captive large. Cats dot as Sarah watched Zara groom her log, an idea formed in her mind. While rare, there had been cases of cross-species adoption in the wild, usually among closely related species. But leopards and lions were natural enemies. Still something told Sarah that Zara's current hormonal state might create an opportunity. The idea seemed foolish and dangerous, but conventional methods had failed, and the cubs would not survive without intervention. Sarah spent the next hour preparing a neutral meeting space, next to the quarantine area where the lion cubs were housed. She set up multiple cameras to monitor every angle and prepared emergency equipment in case things went wrong. Her heart raced as she carefully lifted the female cub and wrapped it in a soft blanket. Zara was brought into the meeting room first, clearly uncomfortable in the unfamiliar space. Sarah entered with the tiny cub. Zara froze, her body tense. Sarah stood still, holding her breath, ready to retreat at the first sign of aggression. Zara's nostrils flared as she sniffed the cub. Her ears flattened, a clear warning sign. Sarah held her position, watching closely. After a long moment, Zara's posture softened. She approached cautiously, her tail low but not threatening. As she came closer, she sniffed the cub and began to gently lick its head, making a soft huffing sound similar to the sound leopard mothers make to comfort their cubs. The cub, instead of recoiling from the touch, went still. After several minutes, Sarah slowly placed the cub on the floor and Zara curled around it, continuing to groom her. The transformation was instant. The lion cub, which had rejected human care, now sought the warmth of Zara's fur. Sarah backed away, keeping her eyes on the pair. Moments later, she returned with the male cub, and the miracle repeated itself. Zara accepted him as well, gathering both lion cubs into her spotted fur as if they were her own. That night, Sarah watched through the monitoring screens as the two cubs nursed from Zara, accepting her as their mother. By morning, the female cub, named Leona by Sarah for her lion-like appearance, had taken some milk from a bottle placed nearby. The male cub, now called Leo, did the same. Zara continued to care for them with tenderness and protection, grooming them and responding immediately to their cries. A week later, Leo and Leona had gained weight and began exploring their surroundings. With curiosity, Zara kept a watchful eye, moving them by the scruff if they wandered too far and using her body as a barrier between them and any humans who approached. Sarah documented everything, noting the rarity and potential value of this cross-species adoption for wildlife rehabilitation. By the time the cubs were a month old, they were eating mashed meat. Although they still curled up against Zara at night, their play began to take on distinctly feline behaviors, stalking, pouncing, and climbing. Zara observed with motherly patience, occasionally joining their games but mostly offering them safe place to retreat when they were tired or uncertain. As Sarah watched the unusual family, she smiled, reflecting that perhaps the most natural thing in nature is not what we expect, but the ability to adapt, overcome obstacles, and form new connections. Zara, Leo, and Leona were rewriting the rules. But as the cubs continued to grow, Sarah wondered how long their bond would last. Would it withstand the natural instincts they would soon develop? Only time would tell. As months passed, Leo and Leona grew into strong young lions. At 6 months old, they had developed powerful muscles and gleaming golden fur. Sarah expanded their enclosure to an acre, replicating the natural savanna habitat they would have known in the wild. Each morning, Zara wasn't just caring for the cubs, she was teaching them to be lions. She encouraged them to stalk through the grass rather than climb, and she taught them to coordinate while hunting, a stark contrast to the solitary hunting habits of leopards. After breakfast, Zara guided them in lessons on patience and how to read the wind, essential skills for a successful predator. However, as Leo and Leona continued to grow, Sarah began to worry. At 9 months, the two lions were nearly Zara's size, and soon they would surpass her in strength. Experts warned of the inevitable. Once the lions reached sexual maturity, their instincts would overpower any bonds formed in childhood. One afternoon, Sarah received an urgent alert. A wild male leopard had entered Zara's territory. She watched through the monitoring system, her heart racing, as the male leopard crept closer to Zara, unaware of the danger. Then, in a surprising turn, Leo leapt to protect Zara, roaring with the strength of a nearly mature lion. The male leopard hesitated, and Leona, alerted by Leo's roar, bounded to his side. Together, the young lions faced the intruder, and after a brief standoff, the male leopard backed away. To Sarah's astonishment, after the threat passed, the two lions returned to Zara, licking her face and rubbing against her with affection, as if she were still their mother. This moment marked a turning point. Over the following weeks, Zara maintained her role as the primary caregiver, but Leo and Leona became more protective, even growling at humans who approached too closely. While experts saw this as a temporary phase, Sarah wasn't convinced. There was something extraordinary in the bond between Zara and her adopted cubs, a connection that seemed to transcend natural instincts. As Leo and Leona reached full maturity, Sarah faced a difficult decision. They had both grown into impressive adults, and it was time they separated from Zara as they would have done in the wild. Despite her colleagues' insistence on separation, Sarah chose to let them remain together, believing the bond between Zara and her cubs was something extraordinary and worth preserving. Years later, Leo and Leona, now fully grown, continued to live with Zara, defying all expectations. They had created a new behavioral language unique to their family. Scientists and animal behaviorists studied their interactions, marveling at how the two lions adjusted their behavior to accommodate Zara's smaller size, and how they hunted together as a team. While their relationship had become a symbol of hope and inspiration for many, it also stirred controversy. Some critics argued that Sarah had interfered too deeply with nature, but Sarah stood by her decision, emphasizing that their unique bond was not a model for all species, but an exceptional case. As the sanctuary flourished, so did the fame of Zara, Leo, and Leona. Visitors flocked from around the world to witness this remarkable family. But Sarah remained cautious, aware that the attention brought new